Good evening. I'm David Nicholas, and next year on CMU Public Television, a mid-Michigan lawmaker elected to a third term this past November. We'll talk with Phil Potvin next on Capitol Report.
Welcome to Capitol Report, a weekly discussion with your elected officials on the issues and concerns that affect you.
My guest this week won a re-election to a third and final term in the State House in November to represent the 102nd District. This includes Wexford and Mecosta counties and parts of Osceola County as well. Congratulations on that re-election, Representative Potvin, and welcome back to Capitol Report.
Dave, thank you very much. Real pleasure to be here this afternoon with you.
And as we sit down this afternoon, there was a news conference held today. Detroit lawmaker Democrat Rosemary Robinson proposing that police officers wear body cameras, widespread use that we've known for several years of dashboard cameras, and now a level of bipartisan support for this proposal. Where do you stand on this and as this legislation is being introduced in the House?
Well, Representative Robinson is very well thought of and very concerned about her Detroit area in particular, and this is one additional piece of safety. And that's what we're about. We're about safety in this particular instance, as well as some of the things that have happened across our country with our police people and also with people that have been arrested for one reason or another, and some of the struggles going on. And I think reporting this, recording this, is a good thing to do. And I will be supporting Representative Robinson in this case.
Have people thought, and we hate to say when we're talking about safety for individuals, safety for our first responders, that in the end that there is still a bill to be paid. Is anywhere in this how we would address the funding for making these body cameras available to the many officers across the entire state of Michigan?
Well, I haven't read the bill, in all honesty. I've got the headlines, but that's about it. So looking beyond that, I will be reading it this week and also talking with Representative Robinson. And our first conversation about this, her plan was that we, as the state of Michigan, should be paying this entire bill. And I think she'll get some pushback from other representatives when it comes to the dollars here, because at the moment our dollars are really very tight.
And we will be getting into some issues of that budget here this afternoon as well. The Senate this past week was looking at a proposal that would allow nurses to write prescriptions. The idea, supporters saying, is aimed at addressing the shortage that we have for physicians, not only now, but a future and ongoing trend of practicing physicians, particularly in the rural areas of the state. Certainly yours is a district. Much of our viewing area in central and northern Michigan fits that definition. Is it a needed measure for now and or permanently to take this step to bring nurses into this aspect of healthcare?
Yeah, I think we'll run into a bit of a challenge. I do believe that with our nurses stepping up as they have been stepping up and performing a lot of different things that our doctors have been doing without direct oversight is a good thing, just because we don't have those doctors there to directly do the oversighting. I have a question, though, about writing a prescription, and we'll be talking a little bit more to my nurses in particular, especially those that are involved in the education of the nurse practitioners in this case.
What about the shortage of the health practitioners in the rural areas? As we sit on the campus of Central Michigan University, second-year medical students, and an entire College of Medicine designed with one of its primary goals and mission statements to address that issue, but it does take time, and it will take time to matriculate those students out in to be able to provide that health care. In a district like yours, there's got to be a number of retiring doctors, we would think. That's been the trend. What are people telling you about having access to adequate health care? What are the needs in your district?
Well, at the moment they are having good availability of doctors. We're very fortunate. You know, in Cadillac, we just had Munson Hospital come down and purchase Mercy Hospital in Cadillac. I'm a volunteer every Sunday at our Mercy Hospital and have been for many, many years. Also sat on their foundation board until I was elected as state representative. So I'm very interested and very committed to our local hospitals, but at the same time, I'm also committed to the role of our physicians and to the role of our nurses. And as we see a commingling of that role, I think there's room for some of that, probably not all of it. And that's where writing prescriptions in particular, at the moment I'm still questioning that piece of it. But as far as nurses stepping up and working a little more independently, a good thing, because they are receiving that extra strong training, in particular at Ferris and also here at Central Michigan. Very pleased about the role that Central is going to be taking as we move forward. I have toured the facility here and very pleased with it, as well as met a lot of the instructors. And again, we're doing the right thing for rural northern Michigan.
Another need in Michigan's changing economy is that for a trained workforce in many technical or technical-based fields, areas where we haven't seen a need for those type of skill sets. And the governor has made it a priority, now going as far as launching a new department for workforce development. Little debate over the need to have those workers, certainly, but there is an existing network of Michigan Works offices already in place. Community colleges have been developing and adapting training programs, vocational programs also in the high schools. So I'm interested in your take on, was this an initiative that was needed to this level to address the needs for the state? How does this go beyond or change the direction of what the state is already doing with an existing infrastructure, I guess, for lack of a better term? How are we now approaching this in a different way than we already have been?
Well, we're really looking to put some more dollars into place. The one thing, because in Cadillac in particular, we have no community college in Wexford County. We do have Baker College, but they're an independent college that is working very closely with our intermediate school district. One thing I'm looking to do is to amend that piece and to allow, in instances where we have no community college to compete with, because we're not talking about competing here, we're talking about working together on the same team for the best possible training for our young people, but to allow this 13th year, which is already allowed in the intermediate school districts, to have a play here with the intermediate school districts doing the training that we would be looking for the community colleges to do. So in all instances, we're looking for better training, no question about it. Is college always necessary? No, it's not. In particular with some of the trades. The other thing I've been pushing hard on is, especially with our union trades, to step up again. Let's put your apprentice programs back. Let's get things working again. You're complaining about the fact you don't have enough people contributing to your retirement plans. That's your fault. You stopped your apprentice programs, and it's time to bring those back again. And we're also working with the Association of Builders and Contractors to keep their pieces in play. We do have some of those in lower Michigan. We need to bring them up to northern rural Michigan. And the opportunities for sure are there. Because what we want is we want our people not only learning at home, but staying at home and working at home then, but with a positive way of making enough money to support their families.
What about the high school piece of that? Because in Michigan's economic downturn, when schools were forced to make cuts in a lot of areas, there were many areas they sought to cut those budgets. Many times we've learned it became the vocational tech program. And so some of those were mothballed, some of those things at least were shelved for a period of time. Now if there's a need to ramp some of that back up in a district like yours, what's the snapshot of how many kids can be moving through potential program during those high school years to be picking up those skills? Are the programs in place? Are some of the schools in Wexford or Mecosta or Osceola counties in need of restarting some of those efforts?
No, those programs are all pretty much in place, Dave, and that's the exciting thing. Both Wexford and Misaki, as well as Mecosta Osceola ISDs, are leading the state in what they're doing for our students and how they're reaching out in the different talented areas. Very, very pleased working with both our superintendents, Kurt Fitch in the Mecosta Osceola, and also Jeff Jernett in the Wexford Misaki. These guys are leading the way, and it's fabulous.
Legislature is taking up a potential state-level challenge to the possibility that the U.S. Supreme Court will legalize same-sex marriage by working to shield adoption agencies who may not want to work with same-sex couples. Given the framework of the Michigan case and whatever we know about the cases that are also going to be coming from Ohio, Kentucky, and Tennessee before the High Court, how does this state-level effort potentially impact a decision that would come down in terms of its scope and breadth and depth from the nation's highest court?
Well, my personal feeling is that is a personal choice, and as a personal choice, don't infringe on me, don't infringe on others. Your personal choice, that's fine. And from the standpoint of the adoption agencies, they've done the best job possible when they're religiously affiliated. And that's what we want to do. All we're doing in this particular case, and I voted yes for this in the State House last week, is that we're ensuring the fact that these agencies may continue with our blessing versus being challenged down the road. And that's where we're coming from, and I see that as a proper decision to make.
Do we think that that would run into a perhaps broad-based decision from the High Court that would overall legalize, and perhaps supporters would say, therefore, by extension, and make such legislation a moot point? What is the potential showdown that might be coming here?
Well, I hate to project that. I'm really going to sit back and wait and see what does happen, and then we will act accordingly.
Democrats have also introduced what they're calling a rollback of that voter-approved ban. Is this being viewed by members of your Republican caucus as a preemptive measure should the Supreme Court not issue a full legalization decision in June? It's another question of what's happening here at the state while everyone is waiting for that ultimate ruling from the High Court.
And again, that's what we're doing. We're waiting for that ruling to see where that's going to be before we take our next step. There's no reason to take another step now with things in place as they are in the state of Michigan.
Governor's office has taken control of the state school reform office. There's been some controversy around the handling and the operation of the oversight of schools in Detroit. Was this a necessary move by the governor to address, is it a Detroit-based decision? Does it go beyond that to look at schools as a whole across the state that have been facing the challenges? What's the mood in the legislature by the move that the governor has now taken?
Well, the mood in the legislature from my end, because I do head up the subcommittee on education and also the vice chair of school aid, and in that particular instance and position that I am in, I'm very pleased that the governor has stepped up. What I've seen with our state superintendent and the state board is a continual put-off of that decision-making until they get pushed hard enough by others, and in particular the legislature, to make a decision. We've got all the information now. Let's firm this thing up and firm it up as our schools come to a school year in so that we can make those adjustments through this summer, and that's what I'm looking to see. I also did call and talk with the DTMB connection that I have to say who's going to be our next champion here of our failing schools, because we do need another new champion. And at the moment, it appears to be Karen McKee, who is not going to be coming into work until April the 6th. And we'll see then what exactly happens. Is the governor going to transfer these people out of the Department of Ed and into DTMB? And I really hope not, because they've failed to perform. Why would we want failing people to come back in and continue a failure? We're here to positively step up, help these schools, and if we're really there to help our children, that's what we're doing. We've got to help our children come into an area where they feel not only safe and comfortable, but also where they can learn. And that's where the other challenge that I have with our ongoing Department of Education is the fact that they want to do all of this testing, and the testing is going to amount to nothing this year. There will be no test results at all for any of our schools, for any of our students. It's all about receiving money from the federal government, and we can get a waiver on that so that we don't have to worry about this. As far as I'm concerned, the tests need to go away, period, and let's let these kids learn, not be tested.
The way that the schools are being evaluated when we're looking at the tipping point, what puts a school into some form of crisis? Is it a matter of enforcement? Is it a matter, because this has been looked at, we've revised the framework by which the schools are evaluated, and you touched on this, or is it an actual execution and putting into effect, okay, schools on the list, these are the factors we're seeing, now we need to move forward and take action. What essentially has been and continues to be the greatest problem in your view?
Greatest problem is there hasn't been any action. There hasn't been any action until the point gets so far tipped that you can't change it. What we have right now, and we're so fortunate, Dave, is we have two different companies that have internet connections, and they have appraised all of the schools, not only financially but also scholastically, of where they are and what kind of performance they're doing. And these programs are available. Quite a few of our schools have signed up for these programs. And they also then are able to project into the future where these programs are going to be if current policies continue. So my thought is, let's spend the money right there. It'll cost us about $4 million to make that available statewide through all of our schools. And that, to me, is the best initial dollars that we can spend. Let's let all schools, again, be responsible as they should be. That's why we have our independent and local school boards. But let's help them make those positive decisions. And if they're not willing to make them, then we will make them for them. And that's where I see our governor moving at this particular point with the change that he just made.
Federal regulations, not only when it comes to curriculum and school performance and the like, has also been put in place to a greater degree regarding the content of food that's being served. It's now being challenged on a different level, specifically with your call, your bill that would allow bake sales as a fundraising exemption that makes the sales of the so deemed less nutritious options. Is this a question of federal government overstepping boundaries in the first place? Can we step back and say our bake sale is the most profitable option for fundraising in light of the fact that the regulations are there? And what all should we be pursuing here?
The other thing that I'm trying to do by reaching out, I did reach out with our state superintendent Flanagan when he said, Phil, what can I do to help you out? And I said, well, you can oversee the mandate that we've received from the federal government on eliminating our bake sales. One thing about it is not everyone can afford to put money into the pot for the different activities that bake sales are sold for and used in our schools. However, if the families come together and cook cookies together, wow, what a great way to bring the family together, to get the family feeling like they're participating, because if you feel like a participant, then you do participate and you work hard for it. And that's exactly what we're able to do. And this isn't just for any sports team, but it's also for our choirs, for our bands. It involves our different classes and class trips. What a great way of something that has been very successful over the years. And no, there isn't too much sugar that's allowed here at all. But what it does do is it picks those kids up, especially with some of the food that's now being demanded that they take. And being in the schools as I've been, Dave, the last month, the amount of food that's just tossed away, not even opened. Why? One, it's not tasteful. Two, it comes out of a box, for heaven's sakes, instead of being made by local people. Local people at one time were in our kitchens, were involved in making our lunches, getting things ready for our children and caring about them, only to be let go in the sake of, let's save some money.
Do you expect Washington to come knocking on your door asking questions about this, given the fact that this has been such a big push, especially from the First Lady?
Well, there are 21 states that have already overridden this First Lady and created exemptions, and that's what I'm still looking forward to, and that's why I'm really looking forward to meeting up with Brian, our new superintendent, whenever he comes to work, and seeing if we can't maneuver this. But in the meantime, I'm looking forward and working very closely with Senator Pat Kolbach, whose bill has already passed the Senate. And the difference between his bill and mine is that he puts a limit on 3 bake sales per week. I had no limit on mine. And I have no problem at all with that in talking to my superintendents. The key here is let's do the override. And if the legislature has to step up and do a job that could be done by our state superintendent and board, we will do that.
You did mention the chairmanship that you now have in the Appropriations Subcommittee for Education. The administration has been borrowing from the surplus education funds, the so-called rainy day fund, to fix holes in the current fiscal year budget. We have a cycle that we are now all aware of, not prior to now, but are now, the tax credit claims that could extend for several years. What needs to be done in the work on that K-12 budget moving forward to shield it from dollars and cents pressures. We only have so many places we can go to craft that budget given the constitutional obligations, and yet we're going to have some strain on the budget for years to come with those tax credits. What's the answer? Well,
the answer is, first, don't spend all of our money. You know, we've taken a look back in January at what our revenue estimation is going to be. We have another revenue estimating conference coming up in May that will give us a for sure as we finish up this budget, again, hopefully the end of May, and give it to our governor. But in the meantime, we've got to be a little more conservative on what we're spending and on where we're spending. What we did the first time, we got hit with this tax credit that we owe to especially our auto industries. We were asked to look at our own budgets, and I did that. I looked at my budget in education, came up with almost $8 million that weren't being spent at all, but that were being held for opportunities that weren't being used. And we pulled those, and now all of a sudden, as I look to the 15-16 budget I see from our governor, he wants to put those back in again. Well, hold it, they're not being used now. What I'm looking forward to doing is using those with our veterans. I also sit on the Veterans Committee, and I'm the only veteran on the Veterans Appropriations Committee, looking to continue to keep those educational opportunities with our veterans, as well as I just spent today with our veterans home in Grand Rapids, seeing some of the improvements that need to continue to be made there so that we can keep our veterans safe and let them live out their last years as they should be, as honored veterans, not just veterans.
Are there other issues there? We have seen the trend that became the national story when it came to the care of veterans, the health care front. I know that Congressman Benishek has been looking to address that as a physician that has practiced at a veterans facility in the Upper Peninsula. What are the biggest challenges or perhaps financial issues for veterans that are being faced, addressed, challenges that could be coming on the horizon that you see?
Well, here in Michigan, we stepped up a couple of years ago, Dave, very positively to put some more dollars into our veterans home. We've also been able to, through grants, work out and get more dollars from our federal government. These are grants that we never asked for before. And we might have been aware, but the people that were aware weren't asking. Now we're asking for those dollars. We're receiving those dollars and being put into our mechanical system, our air conditioning systems in Grand Rapids, as well as doing a lot of our room remodels. We're moving away because what's happened, a number of veterans are passing, and the new amount of veterans coming in aren't filling all those rooms. So we're moving from 4 people in a room down to 2 people in a room and making that much more satisfactory for those people. And that's the key here, it is that we've got to continue to take good care of our veterans.
One other issue on the schools front, earlier in the startup to the new term, when we had a lot of the winter snows and cold and the like, you revisited the proposal that would add more snow days into the school calendar, given the amount of time that can be lost from the school year. Some districts continue to look at a year-round calendar for K-12 schools. If we were to adopt that statewide, would that address the snow day issue, or is that not likely to become a statewide perhaps adopted policy, and do we still need to take care of some of the schools that can get so hard hit by the winter weather?
Well, in the meantime, that's why my bill is they're moving, or proposing to move from 6 to 9 the number of available snow days. Now people say, whoa, we want our kids to go to school more. And that's true. That's exactly why last year, and beginning with this school year, we now have 180 days instead of 175 days. So you use basic math and not Common Core. You subtract that 6 from 175, 169. You subtract 9 from 180, 171. That's 2 more days that they're already going to be in school. And in 2 years, we moved to 185 days. So my reason to go to 9 is to go to 9 so that, again, with the planning, our superintendents and our school boards are able to do that planning, and we don't have kids sitting in school in the middle of June unless that's what they want via the year-round school year. And then those schools need to be prepared for that, especially our southern schools where our temperatures are much warmer, and they're really not prepared with air conditioning and other areas so that they can have a positive classroom environment for our children to learn.
Well, the snow melted, which allowed you to get here, despite the potholes on the road, so we appreciate,
well, I just
as always,
skied last weekend at Keberface, so I'm really enjoying
there's still the
my ski
opportunity,
time.
the borderline there, but we got you here today, and as always, appreciate you taking the time to address a lot of the issues happening in Lansing and specific initiatives that you're working on as well. Always good to have you here, and thanks again. Thanks again, as always, for your time and attention joining us here on Capitol Report. We've been speaking with Representative Phil Potvin, the Republican representative for the 102nd District, now serving in his third term in the State House. A reminder that this program will be repeated this coming Saturday at 6:30 and also 1 week from today at 5 a.m. And we'll also be posting this along with our other segments to our website, WCMU.org. Click on the TV tab under Local Productions, and you'll find the link to Capitol Report. For all of us here, I'm David Nicholas. Thanks for bearing with me with the coughing fits and like. We'll try to be more healed, and we'll talk again next week.
You've been watching Capitol Report. Join us again as your elected officials speak to your concerns on current issues.